When the president directed the mob to go to the Capitol last week as lawmakers were voting on certifying the presidential election, right? Counting the votes, actually. The idea was to use that mob to intimidate members of Congress into overturning the election and to become complicit with Trump's plot to do so. Well, today, members of Congress walked by sleeping National Guardsmen in the Capitol on their way to vote on impeachment. They passed through metal detectors to reach the House chamber that were put in because of fears of security. And as you take in these images and the images from last week, something becomes clear, that a kind of specter that has haunted our politics for at least the past 4 or 5 years has now materialized in the flesh in front of us, clear for all to see: political violence and its effects. It is clear that a significant part of the political calculations of this Trump era, particularly for Republicans, has been the threat of violence and the fear of it. 1 week ago, a violent mob stormed the Capitol. They erected a noose on the grounds, a gallows that appeared to be functional, and they chanted "Hang Mike Pence" as they searched actively for lawmakers who dared to defy Trump, some of them apparently with some real knowledge of the Capitol. Republican Congressman Peter Meijer of Michigan, just elected, he's just serving now, said he had GOP colleagues who knew they should certify Joe Biden's legitimate victory, right, vote to seat the electors, but they did not do so because of, and I quote him here, legitimate concerns about the safety of their families. They felt that that vote would put their families in danger. Think about that for a second. If they voted to ratify the election, their families would be in danger. On this very show last night, Olivia Troy told me that the vice president, who, of course, has been unfailingly loyal to the president, that's, I think, the most charitable and graceful way to describe it, had to consider the threats to him and his family as he was making calculations about whether to further the president's coup, right? If I don't further the president's coup, well, then someone might try to hurt me or my family. And that calculation probably really hit home as Pence was sheltering in a secure location while a mob that wanted to hang him was rampaging through the Capitol. And while the president was attacking him for not having the courage to overturn the election. And then today, Congressman Jason Crow said that some of his Republican colleagues were worried they would be killed if they voted to impeach the president for inciting the violent riot.
The majority of them are actually paralyzed with fear. You know, I had a lot of conversations with my Republican colleagues last night, and a couple of them broke down in tears talking to me and saying that they are afraid for their lives if they vote for this impeachment.
Now, multiple reporters rushed to confirm the exact same thing. These are people sourced in these worlds that say, yes, I've heard the same thing. Personal safety is clearly an issue. Not just that. A bunch of the president's supporters also made the argument that Trump should not be impeached because further violence, the violent mob would come back to extract further revenge.
We see what's happening around this country, how 50 State House Operation Day. This is the last thing you want to do.
I urge you, please do not, and I'm mixing metaphors here, attempt to douse the remaining burning embers of this movement with gasoline.
By the Democrats taking this action, you're telling me, no, when we say those, we actually mean to incite violence. That's what this action is saying.
You're inciting violence because you're punishing the violent mob incited by the president. And if you do that, well, then that you get, it happens, right? Don't anger the mob by punishing its leader or else. And I want to be clear here. When you hear some Republicans are too scared to do the right thing, I think some of it's pretty self-serving, right? Some of it is an excuse for not doing the right thing. They know what the right thing is. They don't want to do it. But it's not crazy. I mean, it is the case. And I can tell you this. This is true. When a person is targeted by the president, when you're targeted by the president on Twitter, your security situation becomes immediately serious. It's true for lawmakers, from Mike Pence to Ilhan Omar. It's true for people in the media. It is true for anyone that Trump singles out for criticism. I mean, Dr. Anthony Fauci has worked in this government for 5 decades, and he used to be the kind of person who would walk down the street and not need a bodyguard. Those days are gone. Now he and his family, they need security. amid a wave of death threats. And that's become the same people that are pumped full of Facebook conspiracies and Fox News and the president's lies hate Anthony Fauci. And some small number of them want to do him harm. A functioning civil society is one that resolves political disputes through legal and democratic process and through protests and civil society. It does not resolve them because one side is worried the other side will shoot it dead if they don't do what they want. And that is the reality, the menace, the intolerable ingredient that Donald Trump has helped add to politics in this era. And it threatens the very core of liberal democracy itself.